They sold her for scraps because they thought she was broken. That was the honest truth. Her father had looked at the medical papers, then at the terrifying man in the black suit and said, "She's barren. You can have her for half price." Fiona stood there numb, watching her own family trade her life to clear a gambling debt. They thought they were sending her to her death at the Blackwood estate. They thought she was useless, but they were wrong. The monster they sold her to didn't want to kill her. He wanted to heal her. And 3 days later, she wasn't just alive. She was carrying the heir to an empire they could only dream of. And when they found out, that was when the real war started. For 22 years, Fiona Miller was the invisible stain on the pristine reputation of the Miller family. They lived in Seattle in a neighborhood where the lawns were manicured with nail scissors and secrets were buried under layers of Botox and Chardonnay. Her father, Gavin, was a man who loved appearances more than he loved his children. Her stepmother, Linda, was a woman who calculated affection like it was a tax return. And then there was Jessica, Fiona's older sister, beautiful, fertile, a perfect Jessica. Fiona was the accident, not just because she was born late, but because of the car crash when she was 16. She survived, but the doctors, specifically their family physician, Dr. Stephen Caldwell, had told her father the damage to her uterus was catastrophic. "She'll never carry a child, Gavin," Dr. Caldwell had said, wiping his glasses. "She's effectively barren." From that day on, Fiona's value in the Miller household dropped to zero. In their circle, marriage was a business transaction, and heirs were the currency. She was a wallet with no cash inside. Fast forward 6 years, the Millers were broke. Gavin had made bad investments in offshore tech that didn't exist, and Linda had spent a fortune trying to launch Jessica's failed modeling career. The sharks were circling, specifically the creditors from the underground. Fiona didn't know the extent of it until the night the black SUV pulled up to their driveway. It was raining, a typical Seattle downpour. Fiona was in the kitchen scrubbing the grout because Linda had fired the maid and decided it was good character building when her father called her into the study. The air in the room was thick with cigar smoke and fear. Gavin was sitting behind his mahogany desk, sweating. Sitting opposite him was a man Fiona had never seen before. He was massive, wearing a suit that cost more than her college tuition. He had pale skin and eyes that looked like shattered glass. "Fiona," her father said, his voice trembling, "this is Mr. Renfield. He represents a private collector, Mr. Adrian Blackwood." Fiona froze. Everyone knew the name Blackwood. They owned half the skyline. They were reclusive, eccentric, and rumored to be involved in things the police didn't touch. "Mr. Blackwood is looking for a companion," the man Renfield said. His voice was like grinding stones. "A specific type of companion. Young, healthy, unattached." "She's unattached," Linda chimed in from the corner, holding a martini glass too tightly, "completely alone." "There is a debt," Renfield said, ignoring her. $3 million. Mr. Blackwood is willing to absorb this debt in exchange for your daughter." Fiona gasped. "You're selling me?" "It's a marriage contract, Fiona," her father snapped, though he couldn't look her in the eye. "It's a great opportunity. The Blackwoods are royalty. But there is a catch," Renfield interrupted. He pulled out a folder. "Mr. Blackwood requires an heir. The contract stipulates that the union must produce a child within 1 year, or the deal is void and the debt is reinstated with interest." The room went silent. Fiona's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was her out. "I can't," she whispered, feeling a strange mix of relief and shame. "I can't have children. I'm infertile." She looked at her father, expecting him to call the deal off. Instead, she saw a flicker of something disgusting in his eyes. Calculation. Gavin leaned forward. "She's barren," he told Renfield. "Damaged goods. We have the medical records to prove it." Renfield frowned. "Then she is useless to us." "Wait," Gavin said quickly. "You take her. You take her and you clear half the debt, $1, $5 million. She's good for other things. She cooks, she cleans, she's obedient. You don't need to marry her. Just take her, use her as a servant or whatever Mr. Blackwood wants." Fiona's knees gave out. She grabbed the back of a chair. "Dad, she's infertile," Linda added, her voice shrill. "You can have her for half price. Just take her out of this house. She's just another mouth to feed here." Renfield looked at Fiona. For a second, she thought she saw pity in those cold eyes. He pulled out his phone, typed a message, and waited. A moment later, it buzzed. "Agreed," Renfield said, standing up. $1, $5 million. We take the girl. No marriage, no rights. She belongs to the estate now. "Pack your bags, Fiona," her father said finally, looking at her. His eyes were dead. "You're leaving tonight." Fiona didn't cry. She was too shocked to cry. She went upstairs, packed a single duffel bag with her worn-out jeans and oversized sweaters, and walked out the front door. She didn't say goodbye to Jessica, who was watching from her window with a smirk. Fiona climbed into the back of the black SUV. As they pulled away, leaving the only life she'd ever known, she realized the truth. She wasn't a daughter. She was a discounted item at a garage sale. She thought she was going to hell. She didn't know she was heading straight into the arms of the devil himself. The drive to the Blackwood estate took 3 hours. They drove deep into the mountains past where the GPS signal died, and the fog rolled in like a living thing. The estate was a fortress, high stone walls, iron gates topped with spikes, and a main house that looked more like a Gothic cathedral than a home. It was beautiful, but terrifying. Renfield led Fiona inside. The house was silent, not the silence of an empty house, but the silence of a predator waiting to strike. The air was colder here, smelling of old books, rain, and something metallic like copper. "Wait here," Renfield said, depositing her in a massive library. "He will see you now." Fiona stood there clutching her bag, shivering in her thin coat. "You smell like sorrow," a voice said. She spun around. Standing by the fireplace was a man. He was tall, leaner than Renfield, but radiating a power that made the air hum. He had jet-black hair that fell over his forehead and eyes that were so dark they looked like voids. He was wearing a simple white shirt, unbuttoned at the top, and black trousers. He was devastatingly handsome, but in the way a thunderstorm is beautiful, dangerous. "You must be Fiona," he said. He didn't walk towards her. He glided. One moment he was by the fire, the next he was 3 feet away. "Mr. Blackwood," she stammered. "Adrian," he corrected. He circled her, his nose flaring slightly. "Your father told my associate you are broken, that your womb is a desert." Fiona flinched. "Yes, I can't give you an heir. I'm sorry if you were misled." Adrian stopped in front of her. He reached out and tilted her chin up. His fingers were ice cold. "Do you know what I am, Fiona?" She looked into his eyes and saw the red flecks swimming in the black. She had heard the rumors, the missing hikers, the blood banks that were heavily funded by the Blackwood Corp. "I have a guess," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Say it." "Vampire." He smiled, revealing elongating canines. "Precise. And do you know why a vampire would want a human bride? To feed? We have blood bags for that," he dismissed. "No, we look for a mate because immortality is incredibly boring without a witness. But there is a biological imperative. We are a dying breed. It is nearly impossible for our kind to procreate with humans. It requires a specific genetic marker in the human, a compatibility." He stepped back, looking her up and down. "Your father sold you as infertile, but he is a fool who trusts human doctors. Human doctors see a scarred uterus and see a dead end. I see potential." "What do you mean?" she asked, stepping back. "I mean, Fiona, that I did not buy you to clean my floors. I bought you because when I look at you, I don't see a barren wasteland. I see a dormant garden. You think you can fix me?" she asked, incredulous. Dr. Caldwell said. Dr. Caldwell is a quack, Adrian growled. I can heal you, my blood can heal you, but it requires a bonding, a transfer of essence. He moved closer again, his voice dropping to a hypnotic velvet tone. I will give you a choice. I never take what isn't given. You can stay here, safe, fed, and work as a servant. You will live a long, quiet life. Or you can give me 3 days. 3 days to share my bed. 3 days to let me bite you, to let my venom repair your tissues. If it works, you will be the mother of the most powerful child in the Pacific Northwest. If it fails, you lose nothing but 3 days. Fiona looked at him. She thought of her father selling her for half price. She thought of Jessica's smirk. She thought of the empty, cold future awaiting her as a servant. And then she looked at Adrian. There was hunger in his eyes, yes, but there was no cruelty. There was a strange, intense loneliness that matched her own. 3 days, she asked. 3 nights, he clarified, and the days in between. Fiona took a deep breath. She had nothing left to lose. Okay. Adrian's eyes flashed red. He scooped her up into his arms, as if she weighed nothing. Then, let us begin. Fiona expected pain. She expected horror. She did not expect the most intense passion of her life. The first night was a blur of sensation. Adrian's bedroom was a tower room with windows overlooking the misty forest. He was gentle, terrifyingly so. When he kissed her, he tasted like red wine and iron. When he bit her, right at the juncture of her neck and shoulder, it didn't hurt like a wound. It burned, a hot liquid fire that spread through her veins. She could feel his venom moving through her, hunting down the scar tissue. The damage, the broken parts of her. It felt like being rewired from the inside out. He didn't drain her. He sipped just enough to mix their bloodlines, and then he sealed the wound with a lick of his tongue that sent shivers down her spine. Stay with me, he whispered against her skin, his body cold against her feverish heat. Let it work. For 3 days, they didn't leave that room. They talked. That was the surprise. Between the bouts of intense physical intimacy, Adrian wanted to know her. He asked about her books, her dreams, the music she liked. He listened to her rant about how unfair it was that she was sold. They didn't deserve you, he said on the second night, stroking her hair. They looked at a diamond and saw glass. And what do you see? She asked, tracing the hard line of his jaw. I see the future, he said simply. By the third morning, Fiona felt different. Her skin was glowing. The constant ache in her lower back, a remnant of the car accident, was gone. She felt full of energy, vibrant, alive in a way she hadn't been since she was 16. Adrian stood by the window watching the sunrise. The UV-tinted glass protected him. He looked tired but satisfied. It is done, he said. Did it work? Fiona asked, sitting up in the silk sheets. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. We will know soon, but for now, the contract is fulfilled. You are no longer a servant, Fiona. You are the lady of Blackwood Manor, regardless of the outcome. He truly loved her. She realized it then. He had saved her from her family, not just to use her as a broodmare, but because he saw something in her worth saving. 2 weeks later, Fiona was in the library organizing Adrian's first editions when the smell of the old paper suddenly made her stomach turn. She rushed to the bathroom, barely making it to the sink before she retched. She washed her face with cold water, staring at her reflection. Her breasts were tender. Her sense of smell had been dialed up to 11. She could smell the pine needles outside, the copper in the pipes. She ran to the medical wing of the estate. Renfield was there organizing supplies. I need a test, she said, breathless. A pregnancy test? Renfield raised an eyebrow, but handed her a box without a word. She took the test. 3 minutes, the longest 3 minutes of her life. She looked at the stick. 2 solid pink lines. She fell to the floor, sobbing not out of sadness, but out of pure, overwhelming shock. She wasn't broken. He had fixed her. The door burst open. Adrian was there in a flash. He must have heard her heartbeat change. He looked at her, then at the stick in her hand. The vampire lord, the monster of Seattle, fell to his knees. He took the stick, looked at it, and then buried his face in her lap. She felt his shoulders shake. He was weeping. Tears of blood stained her jeans. "You did it," he whispered. "Fiona, you did it." "We did it," she corrected, running her fingers through his hair. They were happy. For about 24 hours, they were in heaven. Adrian began ordering cribs, discussing names, planning to expand the security detail. But secrets in Seattle don't stay secret for long, especially not when you have a sister like Jessica who stalks social media and a former doctor who talks too much. Renfield came into the dining room the next evening, his face grim. He held a tablet. "Sir," Renfield said, "we have a problem." "What is it?" Adrian asked, not looking up from where he was feeding Fiona strawberries. He was obsessed with her nutrition now. "It's the Millers," Renfield said. "They found out about the pregnancy. Dr. Caldwell leaked the results of Fiona's blood work from the hospital visit last week." Fiona froze. "What?" "They are suing," Renfield said. "They are claiming that since Fiona is pregnant, she was obviously not infertile when sold. Therefore, the discount was based on fraud. They want her back." "They want me back?" Fiona asked, her voice trembling. "No," Adrian said, standing up, his eyes turning a violent crimson. "They don't want you back, Fiona. They want the baby, and they want the other $1.5 million. Renfield nodded. "They are on their way here with lawyers and the press." Adrian looked at Fiona. "Let them come." The security monitors in Adrian's study showed a circus. Outside the massive iron gates of Blackwood Estate, 3 news vans were parked. Reporters were standing in the rain, microphones ready, and right in the center of the chaos was Fiona's family. Her father, Gavin, looked righteous in his trench coat. Linda was dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief, playing the grieving mother. And Jessica. Jessica looked like she was walking a red carpet, posing for the cameras while holding a sign that read, "Return our daughter." "They brought the press," Renfield said, staring at the screen with disgust. "They know we value privacy. They are trying to smoke us out." "They are trying to shame me," Adrian said, his voice low and dangerous. He buttoned his cuffs. "They think that because I'm a creature of the night, I fear the light of public opinion. They are mistaken." He turned to Fiona. She was sitting on the velvet sofa, her hand protectively over her still, flat stomach. "You stay here, Fiona," he commanded gently. "No," she said, standing up. Her legs shook, but her voice didn't. "If I hide, they win. They need to see that I'm not a prisoner. They need to see that I chose you." Adrian studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Renfield, open the gates, but keep the perimeter secure. If anyone steps 1 foot onto the private drive, remove them." They walked out to the front portico. The rain had stopped, leaving a heavy grey mist hanging over the estate. As they stepped into view, the cameras flashed like lightning. Fiona's father saw her first. "Fiona!" he shouted, rushing forward until he hit the invisible barrier of Adrian's security team. "Fiona! Thank God! Are you hurt? Did he hurt you?" "Stop it, Dad," Fiona said, her voice amplified by the acoustics of the stone courtyard. "Drop the act." Linda stepped forward, her face twisting into a sneer when she saw the diamond necklace Adrian had given Fiona. A family heirloom worth more than their old house. "Look at her, Gavin. She's been bought dressed up like a doll while we suffer." "We are here to renegotiate," Gavin yelled, pointing a finger at Adrian. "You scammed us, Blackwood. You claimed you were buying damaged goods. You said she was barren, but we have sources. Dr. Caldwell told us she's pregnant." You stole a prime breeding asset for the price of a mule? The words hung in the air. Prime breeding asset. Fiona felt sick. Is that all I am to you? She screamed back, tears stinging her eyes. An asset? You sold me. You traded me to pay off your gambling debts. We did what we had to do to save the family, Jessica shouted, flipping her hair, and you should be grateful. Instead, you lied. You pretended to be broken so you could get a rich husband while we almost lost the house. I didn't lie, Fiona cried. Dr. Caldwell told us I was infertile. You were there, Dad. You saw the charts. Maybe you faked it, Linda hissed. Or maybe this monster used some dark magic. It doesn't matter. The contract was for an infertile woman. If you are pregnant, the contract is void. You belong to us until he pays the full market value, $5 million, or we take you back and sell the rights to the baby. Adrian laughed. It was a terrifying sound. It wasn't loud, but it silenced the reporters. He stepped off the porch and walked toward the gate. The security team parted for him. He stopped inches from the iron bars, looking down at Gavin. You speak of market value, Adrian said, his voice smooth as silk but sharp as a razor. You speak of contracts, but you forget who you are dealing with, Gavin Miller. I have been alive for 300 years. I have written contracts in blood and ink, and I know a hustle when I see one. Adrian's eyes began to glow with a faint crimson light. The reporters gasped, cameras zooming in. You want more money? Adrian asked. We want justice, Gavin stammered, stepping back, fear finally breaking through his greed. You want $5 million, Adrian continued. Fine, Fiona gasped. Adrian, no! Adrian held up a hand to silence her. I will give you $5 million right now, a wire transfer to your offshore account. Gavin's eyes lit up. Linda grabbed his arm, practically drooling. Jessica smirked at Fiona, mouthing, We won. But, Adrian added, his voice dropping an octave, if you take the money, you sign a new contract, a non-disclosure agreement, and a termination of parental rights. You will never see Fiona again. You will never see my child. You will forget she ever existed. If you speak her name, if you approach this estate, if you even look at a photo of her, the deal is void. And I will come for you, and I will not bring lawyers. He smiled, revealing the tips of his fangs. Do we have a deal? Gavin didn't even look at Fiona. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask if she was happy. He just looked at the imaginary pile of cash. Deal, her father said. Where do we sign? Linda added. Fiona's heart shattered completely. Until that moment, a tiny, foolish part of her hoped they were actually there because they missed her, but they just sold her again. Renfield stepped forward with a tablet. They signed. They watched the transfer hit their phones. They cheered. They got in their car and drove away without looking back once. Fiona stood on the porch, feeling hollow. Adrian walked back to her and wrapped his arms around her. He didn't say, I told you so. He just held her while she cried into his expensive shirt. They are gone, he whispered. You are safe. But as Fiona watched the taillights of her parents' car disappear into the fog, a thought struck her. A thought that was sharper than any vampire's tooth. Dr. Caldwell. Her father had said, Dr. Caldwell told us she's pregnant. How did Dr. Caldwell know she had taken a home test? She hadn't gone to a hospital yet. Renfield had bought the test at a pharmacy 2 towns over. Adrian, she said, pulling back, her eyes wide. How did Dr. Caldwell know I was pregnant? We haven't told anyone. Adrian froze. His pupils contracted. Renfield bought the test with cash. There is no paper trail. Then who told him? Adrian turned to Renfield. Bring me the security logs and get the car. We are paying Dr. Stephen Caldwell a visit. Dr. Caldwell's private clinic was in downtown Seattle, a sleek glass building that smelled of antiseptic and money. It was late, past closing hours, but Renfield had persuaded the night guard to let them in. Adrian was in a mood Fiona had never seen before. He wasn't the romantic lover or the stoic lord. He was the predator. He moved through the hallways with a blur of speed, his coat billowing behind him like wings. They found Dr. Caldwell in his office, shredding documents. When the door slammed open, Caldwell jumped, dropping a stack of files. He was a small man, balding, with nervous hands. When he saw Adrian, the colour drained from his face. "Mr. Blackwood," Caldwell stuttered. I wasn't expecting an appointment." "You weren't expecting me to find out," Adrian said, closing the door and locking it. "Sit down, Doctor." Caldwell sat. He looked at Fiona, his eyes darting to her stomach. "How did you know?" Fiona asked, stepping forward. "How did you tell my parents I was pregnant before I even confirmed it with a doctor?" I guessed," Caldwell lied, sweat beading on his forehead. "I knew Mr. Blackwood's reputation. I assumed." "Don't lie to me," Adrian snarled. He was across the room in a blink, slamming his hands onto Caldwell's desk. The wood cracked. "I can hear your heart, Stephen. It's beating like a trapped bird. You didn't guess. You knew." Adrian picked up a file from the desk, one Caldwell had been trying to shred. It was labelled Patient S. Miller, Subject 89. Adrian opened it. His eyes scanned the pages at supernatural speed. His expression went from angry to horrified. "What is it?" Fiona asked, terrified. Adrian looked at her, his eyes filled with a sorrow so deep it frightened her. "Fiona, the accident when you were 16, the car crash. What about it?" "You weren't injured in the crash," Adrian said, his voice trembling with rage. "Your uterus was fine. The scans from the ER show no damage." "But he told me I was barren," she whispered, pointing at Caldwell. "He showed me the scars on the ultrasound." "Fake," Adrian spat, throwing the file at Caldwell. "Digital manipulations. Then why couldn't I get pregnant?" Fiona asked, confused. "I had a boyfriend in college." "We didn't use protection for a year. Nothing happened." Adrian walked around the desk and grabbed Caldwell by the lapels, hoisting him into the air. Tell her what you did." Caldwell was sobbing now. "I had to. She made me do it. She has leverage on me. She knows about my malpractice suits." "Who?" Fiona screamed. "Who made you do it?" "Linda," Caldwell choked out. "Your stepmother." The room spun. "Linda came to me after the crash," Caldwell gasped, his feet dangling off the floor. "She said Gavin's money was drying up. She said if you married well and had heirs, her daughter Jessica would get nothing. She wanted Jessica to be the only viable option for a rich match." "So you lied?" Fiona asked. "I didn't just lie," Caldwell wept. "She paid me to give you injections. We called them vitamin boosters for your recovery. Do you remember?" Fiona flashed back to her teenage years. The weekly shots Linda insisted she take to build her strength after the crash. "What was in them?" Adrian demanded, his grip tightening. "A chemical suppressor," Caldwell confessed. "It mimics infertility. It shuts down ovulation and creates scar-like tissue buildup. It's temporary, but if used long enough it becomes permanent." Fiona fell into a chair. Her entire life, the shame, the feeling of being broken, the way her father looked at her, like a failed investment. It was all manufactured. Linda had poisoned her to clear the path for Jessica. "And how did you know I was pregnant now?" she asked, her voice deadly quiet. "The suppressor," Caldwell wheezed. "It reacts to non-human DNA. I knew that if Mr. Blackwood, if he mated with you, his venom acts as a universal purgative. It cleanses the blood. I knew his essence would burn the poison out of your system within days. I knew you would conceive immediately." "So you called Linda," Adrian said. "You told her the plan failed." "I told her to get the money before you found out the truth," Caldwell cried. "I just wanted my cut." Adrian looked at the grovelling man. The vampire's face was a mask of cold fury. "You poisoned her," Adrian whispered. "You stole 6 years of her life. You made her believe she was broken." "Please," Caldwell begged. "I'll lose my license. I'll go to jail." "Jail?" Adrian scoffed. "Jail is for humans, Doctor. You have committed a crime against the Blackwood bloodline." Adrian turned to Fiona. "Fiona, go to the car." "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to make sure he never writes a prescription again," Adrian said. "Renfield, escort my wife to the car." Renfield guided Fiona out. As the heavy door closed, she heard a sound. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound of a heavy filing cabinet falling and the snapping of bone. Fiona sat in the car, the rain drumming on the roof. She touched her stomach. She wasn't just healed. She was avenged. But the anger inside her wasn't gone. It was shifting. Linda, she was the architect. She was the one who held the needle. She was the one who sold her. And now she was sitting in Fiona's childhood home with $5 million of her husband's money. The car door opened and Adrian slid in. He smelled of rain and rubbing alcohol. He wiped a speck of blood from his knuckle. "It is done," he said. "He confessed everything on tape before he fainted. We have the evidence." He took her hand. "We can let the police handle Linda. The fraud is extensive. She will go to prison for decades." Fiona looked out the window at the Seattle skyline. She thought about the police. Prison was too slow. Prison was too clean. "No," she said, turning to look at him. Her eyes felt dry, hot. She wanted to play games with bloodlines. She wanted to treat me like a transaction. "What do you want to do, Fiona?" Adrian asked, studying her face with interest. "I don't want to arrest her," Fiona said. "I want to bankrupt her. I want to take everything, the house, the money, the reputation, Jessica's career. I want them to feel what it's like to have zero value." She squeezed Adrian's hand. "You said you have contracts written in blood," she said. "Teach me." Adrian smiled. It was the smile of a king who had finally found his queen. "Renfield," Adrian called out to the front seat. "Cancel our dinner reservations. My wife wants to go to war." Revenge, Fiona discovered, isn't something you rush. It's a dish best served cold. Yes, but presentation is everything. For 2 weeks, Adrian and Fiona existed in the eye of the storm. While her body worked overtime, nurturing the miracle growing inside her, her bump already showing a distinct, firm curve. By week 5, Adrian's team worked on dismantling the life she had left behind. They watched them from the sanctuary of the Blackwood estate. They had tapped into everything. Fiona saw the credit card alerts as Linda bought a new Mercedes-Benz, the transaction labeled consulting fee from the money Adrian had wired. She watched Gavin pay off his bookie in a bar downtown, looking arrogant and untouchable, and she watched Jessica. Jessica was the worst of them. She was planning a grand rebranding gala at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. She was pivoting her social media presence from aspiring model to socialite and philanthropist, using the money obtained from selling her own sister to fund a launch party for a skincare line she hadn't even created yet. "They are celebrating," Renfield noted one evening, placing a tablet on the mahogany desk. "They believe you are gone for good, buried in the mountains." "Let them celebrate," Adrian said, not looking up from the legal documents he was marking with a fountain pen. "Fat cows are slower to run when the wolves come." He looked at Fiona. She was standing by the window, wearing one of the silk robes he had bought her, her hand resting on her stomach. The anger that had once felt like a hot coal in her chest had cooled into something sharper, something like a blade. "Are you sure you want to do this yourself, Fiona?" Adrian asked gently. "I can destroy them with a phone call. You never have to see their faces again." "No," she said, turning to him. "They didn't sell you. They sold me. I need to be the one who hands them the receipt." The night of the gala. Seattle was draped in a heavy, suffocating mist. It was perfect. They arrived at the Fairmont in the Phantom. The valet looked terrified as Adrian stepped out. He was dressed in a tuxedo that was cut so sharply it looked like a weapon, his presence sucking the oxygen out of the damp air. He extended a hand to Fiona. She took it. She wasn't Fiona the servant girl anymore. She was Fiona Blackwood. She wore a gown of midnight blue velvet that hugged every curve, specifically designed to accentuate the pregnancy rather than hide it. Around her neck hung the Blackwood emerald, a stone the size of a quail's egg that had belonged to Adrian's mother. "Ready," he whispered. "Show time," she replied. They didn't take the side entrance. They walked through the main brass doors, past the security team, who took one look at Adrian's eyes and decided not to ask for an invitation. The ballroom was a sea of champagne, sequins, and fake laughter. A giant banner hung over the stage. Jessica Miller, the new face of beauty. Fiona's sister was on stage, holding a microphone, basking in the applause of people who only liked her because they thought she was rich. "My family has been through so much," Jessica was saying, squeezing out a fake tear. "My poor sister Fiona, she had to go away for her mental health. It's been hard, but we are survivors." Linda was in the front row, nodding solemnly, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Gavin was at the bar, laughing loudly with a group of investors. Then the doors slammed shut behind them. It wasn't a loud sound, but the heavy thud echoed through the room. Heads turned. The chatter died down, rippling into silence from the back of the room to the front. Adrian and Fiona walked down the center aisle. The crowd parted instinctively, a mix of fear and awe pushing them back. The click of her heels on the marble floor was the only sound in the room. Jessica froze mid-sentence. Her eyes went wide, fixing on the emerald around Fiona's neck, then moving down to the undeniable swell of her stomach. The microphone dipped in her hand, letting out a sharp screech of feedback that made everyone wince. "Fiona," she breathed, her voice amplified by the speakers. "What? What are you doing here?" Fiona didn't stop until she was at the foot of the stairs leading to the stage. She looked up at Jessica. Her sister looked small, cheap. "I'm here for the party, Jess," Fiona said, her voice projecting clearly without a mic. "I heard you were celebrating the family fortune. I thought I should be here considering I am the fortune." Gavin scrambled over from the bar, his face flushing a deep, panicked red. "Fiona, You signed a contract. You can't be here. Security, get this woman out." Two security guards stepped forward, but Renfield, who had materialized from the shadows, simply stepped in their path. He didn't raise a hand. He just smiled, revealing too many teeth. The guards backed down immediately. "The contract is void, Father," Fiona said, finally stepping onto the stage. Jessica stumbled back, nearly tripping over her train. Fiona took the microphone from her limp hand. "Good evening, everyone." She addressed the room. The silence was absolute. "My father is right. There was a contract. 2 weeks ago, Gavin and Linda Miller sold me to settle a gambling debt. The price was $1. $5 million. A collective gasp went through the room. Whispers hissed like steam. "That's a lie," Linda shrieked, standing up. "She's delusional. She's sick. They sold me at a discount," Fiona continued, ignoring her, "because they claimed I was damaged goods, infertile, useless for anything other than servitude." She placed a hand on her stomach, turning to profile so the entire room could see the silhouette. "But as you can see," she said, her voice dropping to a steel whisper, "I am very much fertile, which means the product was misrepresented and the buyer is unhappy." Adrian stepped onto the stage. He moved with that predatory grace that made humans unconsciously hold their breath. He stood beside her, a dark tower of protection. "I do not like being defrauded," Adrian said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a resonance that vibrated in the chest. "And I do not like thieves." "We didn't know," Gavin stammered, sweat pouring down his face. "It was a mistake. A medical error." "Was it?" Fiona asked. She nodded to the tech booth at the back of the room. They had bought the production company that morning. The technician, terrified and well paid, hit the button. The giant screen behind them, which had been displaying a slideshow of Jessica's selfies, flickered. A video replaced it. It was Dr. Caldwell. He was sitting in his office, his arm in a cast, looking into the camera with terrified eyes. "My name is Dr. Stephen Caldwell," the video played. "For 6 years I administered injections of a suppressant drug to Fiona Miller. I did this at the request of Linda Miller." The room erupted. Linda froze, her face draining of all color. The drug was designed to mimic infertility and create false scarring on ultrasounds. Caldwell continued on the screen. "Linda paid me $5,000 a month to ensure Fiona remained unmarriageable so that her daughter Jessica would inherit the family estate and secure a wealthy match. Fiona was never barren. She was poisoned." The video cut to a series of bank statements, Miller joint account transferring funds to Caldwell Medical Solutions, dates, amounts. It was undeniable. Fiona looked at Linda. She wasn't screaming anymore. She was shaking. The socialites around her were backing away, looking at her like she was a leper. "You poisoned me," Fiona said, looking directly at her. "For 6 years you let me believe I was broken. You let me cry myself to sleep, wondering what was wrong with me, while you paid a doctor to destroy my body. I did what I had to do." Linda screamed, her composure shattering. "We needed the money. You were just a drain on us. You were nothing." "And now?" Fiona asked. "Now I'm the Lady of Blackwood. And you?" The doors opened again. This time it wasn't guests. It was the Seattle Police Department, flanked by the district attorney himself. "Linda Miller, Gavin Miller," the officer announced, his voice booming. "You are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, medical malpractice, and grievous bodily harm." Gavin tried to run. It was pathetic. He made it 3 steps before an officer tackled him. Linda was sobbing, screaming that she was a victim, that it was all Dr. Caldwell's idea. Jessica stood on stage, trembling. She looked at Fiona, her eyes filled with hate. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "You jealous, freakish little—" She lunged at Fiona, her nails aimed at her face. She never made it. Adrian moved faster than human eyes could track. 1 second he was beside Fiona. The next he had Jessica by the wrist. He didn't strike her. He just held her arm in the air, his grip like iron. "Do not!" Adrian growled, his eyes flashing a momentary terrifying crimson. "Touch my wife or my child." He released her, and she collapsed to the floor, weeping. As the police cuffed Fiona's family, the father who sold her, the stepmother who poisoned her, and the sister who mocked her, she felt a strange sensation. She expected to feel joy. She expected to feel giddy. Instead, she felt a heavy, peaceful finality. She watched them being dragged out the side exit, the paparazzi cameras flashing like strobe lights, capturing their ruin for the morning papers. They had wanted fame. They had wanted to be the talk of the town. Now they were. The room was silent again. Hundreds of eyes were on Fiona. She looked at Adrian. He offered her his arm again. "Are you finished, my love?" he asked. "Yes," she said, turning her back on the stunned crowd. "Let's go home." They walked out of the ballroom, leaving the wreckage of the Miller family behind them. Fiona didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her future was walking beside her and kicking inside her. The war was over. Now the reign of the Blackwood family could begin. The high of their victory at the gala faded, replaced by a new, more terrifying reality. The pregnancy itself. A vampire-human hybrid is a biological anomaly, something that defies nature. Fiona's pregnancy didn't follow the rules. It didn't take 9 months, it took 6. And they were the most physically draining 6 months of her life. By the 4th month, Fiona was bedridden. The baby was growing at an accelerated rate, and he was hungry not for food but for essence. Her body was working overtime to sustain a life that was half immortal. She grew pale, her cheekbones sharpening as the baby drew strength directly from her blood. Adrian was a wreck. The stoic, powerful lord of the night, spent his days pacing the bedroom floor and his nights kneeling by the bed, his head resting against her distended stomach, listening to the rapid, thundering heartbeat inside. "He is taking too much," Adrian whispered one night, his voice thick with guilt. He looked at her bruised arm, where Renfield had just administered an iron IV. "You are fading, Fiona. If this continues, if it comes down to a choice between you and the child." He looked up, his dark eyes burning with fierce, desperate love. "I choose you, always. I will not trade your life for an heir." Fiona ran her fingers through his hair, weak but resolute. "You won't have to choose. I'm not the broken thing my father sold, Adrian. I'm strong. We are keeping him." The labor began on a stormy night in November, the night of a blood moon. The pain hit Fiona like a physical blow, snapping her awake. It wasn't the slow build-up of a human labor. It was an avalanche. The baby was ready, and he was fighting his way out. They couldn't go to a hospital. A baby with a body temperature of 50 degrees and a heart rate of 40 beats per minute would trigger every alarm in the NICU. They were alone in the master suite, which Renfield had converted into a sterile trauma room. "Stay with me, Fiona!" Adrian roared over the sound of thunder shaking the estate. He was behind her, supporting her weight, his cold strength the only thing anchoring her to the bed. The pain was blinding, a white-hot fire tearing her apart. "I can't!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "He's too strong!" "You are stronger!" Adrian commanded, gripping her hand so tight she thought he might crush it. "You survived the poison. You survived the betrayal. Do not let go now." "Push!" Fiona screamed, a primal guttural sound that harmonized with the crack of lightning outside. She poured every ounce of her love, her rage, and her hope into that final push. The room went silent. The thunder stopped. Then a sound broke the stillness, a soft melodic cry. "Fiona?" Adrian breathed. The fear in his voice was gone, replaced by pure awe. She slumped back against him, struggling to keep her eyes open. "Is he? He is perfect." Adrian moved around to face her, holding a bundle wrapped in black silk. He lowered the blanket. The baby was small but strong, his skin the color of alabaster. He had a shock of jet-black hair, just like his father. But when he opened his eyes, they weren't the blue of a newborn. They were a brilliant, piercing violet, the mark of high nobility in vampire lore. He didn't cry. He looked at Fiona with an intelligence that was ancient and terrifyingly beautiful. He knew her. "Alexander," she whispered, touching his tiny cold hand. "His name is Alexander." Adrian kissed her sweat-drenched forehead, then kissed the baby's head. Tears of blood tracked down his face. Alexander Blackwood, the heir to the night. 3 years later, the sun was setting over the Blackwood estate, casting long golden shadows across the lawn. Fiona sat on the stone terrace sipping tea, watching the scene before her. A 3-year-old boy was running across the grass. He moved with a blur of speed, faster than any human child, laughing as he chased a dragonfly. He leapt into the air, clearing a 4-foot hedge with effortless grace, landing softly on the other side. "He has your energy," Adrian said, stepping up behind her and placing a hand on her shoulder. "And your stubbornness." She laughed, leaning back into his touch. Life had settled into a rhythm of peace Fiona never thought possible. The monsters of her past had been devoured by their own greed. Linda was serving 20 years in federal prison, her vanity destroyed by a prison uniform. Gavin was working in a car wash in Florida, hiding from debt collectors. Jessica had changed her name and vanished into obscurity. They were ghosts. Fiona was alive. Adrian walked out onto the grass and scooped Alexander up. The boy shrieked with delight as his father spun him around. Fiona looked at them. Her husband, the monster who saved her and her son, the miracle they said she could never have. Her father had looked at a medical chart and seen a broken product to be sold at a discount. He sold her for scraps. But he didn't realize that in the right hands, even broken things can be forged into something unbreakable. He sold her to a beast, but the beast made her a queen. And for the first time in her life, Fiona wasn't just surviving, she was home. And that is the story of how Fiona went from being sold as damaged goods to becoming the mother of the most powerful heir in the city. Her family tried to sell her into a nightmare, but she turned it into a fairy tale. They are rotting in cells of their own making, while she is raising a son who can jump over walls, living with a husband who would burn the world down for her. It just goes to show, sometimes your family's betrayal is actually your destiny's greatest gift. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of revenge, romance, and vampire drama, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. What do you think? Should Alexander have a little sister in the next story? Let us know in the comments below.